Chapter 4298. Yi. Brother Yi? When the person sees Mu Yan, his face reveals a surprised expression. He frowns and says, "Why are you here?" Mu Yan raises her eyebrows. "That's what I wanted to ask. Why is young Master Han here?" The person who walks out from the darkness is actually the eldest son of the Han family, Han Jiaming, who is sent to participate in the heavenly enchantment banquet. Han Jiaming reveals a bitter smile. "If I say that I don't know what's going on, would you believe me, Brother Yi? 2 hours ago, a demon servant came to inform me that the demon lord invited all the winners of each round to meet him, so I followed the demon servant here. But after entering this hall, the door was suddenly locked, and then slowly, the cultivation in my body began to retreat, and I couldn't use it. Moreover, Han Jiaming's face was a little flushed, and he had an awkward expression on his face. After a long while, he grits his teeth and says, "Right now, I only feel as if there's a fire burning in my dantian, and all the blood in my body seems to be boiling. This feeling is like I've been poisoned with some kind of shameful drug." Mu Yan frowns, and her complexion also changes. Regarding drugs, she doesn't care about it at all. In this world, there really aren't many poisons and drugs that can stump her. But what's going on now? Just as Han Jiaming said, as time passes in this room, she feels that the spiritual power, immortal power, and even divine power in her body are rapidly depleting. Her abdomen feels like there's a fire burning, gradually spreading to her whole body. Moreover, this fire doesn't only seem to be burning her body, but also her soul. Her cheeks become crimson and hot, and her eyes become unfocused and blurry. It's as if there's a fire burning in her head, stirring all her thoughts into a ball of paste, making her unable to think. Mu Yan wants to take out the Tian Mo Qin to calm her mind, but she finds out that the Tian Mo Qin's space can't be opened. Brother Yi, do you know what's going on? Who's behind this? Why do you want to trap us here?" Mu Yan glances at the hazy figure not far away and doesn't answer. He also wants to know who used Jun Shirtian's name to lure her here, and why did they have to involve Han Jiaming? Mu Yan is sure that the demon attendant is Jun Shirtian's trusted aide. Only Jun Shirtian's trusted aides knew that Yi Liangchen was the demon race's princess. If not for this, Mu Yan wouldn't have followed him so defenselessly. Who could plant a spy under the eyes of Jun Shirtian and not be discovered? Mu Yan's eyes slightly narrowed, and a dense cold light shot out from her eyes. Until now, she did not feel that she was poisoned or drugged. However, his body's abnormal reaction couldn't be deceived. There was only one possibility, and that was that someone had done something to her body. And the only person who could tamper with her body and make her feel a little strange was that person. Zhongli, the Demon Emperor's high priest. Or rather, Wenjia, who had replaced the real Zhongli and served as the Demon Emperor's high priest for nearly 1,000 years. Mu Yan gently pressed her finger on the void spirit ring, thinking of a way to escape. At this moment, a few rays of light suddenly lit up the room. They were red candles, and they burned in the 4 corners of the hall. As the candles burned, a faint aroma wafted through the room. It made Mu Yan's mind, which was finally clear after using internal force, become incomparably hot and chaotic in an instant. Chapter 4299. Brother Yi, don't you feel that it's so hot here? So uncomfortable? Han Jiaming's voice becomes extremely hoarse, his hands constantly pulling at his clothes. Under the illumination of the orange candlelight, the man's handsome face can be seen, as well as the beads of sweat flowing down his face and into his chest. Sexy and enchanting. Han Jiaming's eyes are blurred, stumbling towards Mu Yan, as if yearning for something. Mu Yan raises the 7 absolute sword in her hand and swings it. Cold light rustles. Blood splatters. Han Jiaming's exposed chest is slashed with a bloody wound. The intense pain made him let out a muffled groan, and he took a few steps back. Mu Yan's voice is also a bit hoarse, but her tone is exceptionally cold. "Young Master Han, calm down, otherwise my sword won't have eyes." Fortunately, before the door was completely closed, she summoned the 7 absolute sword out of reflex. Otherwise, she might not even have the leeway to resist. Han Jiaming clutches the wound on his chest and shakes his head, revealing a struggling and ashamed expression. I'm sorry. I was rude. Just now when I smelled that fragrance, I don't know why I lost my mind and treated you as a woman. Brother Yi, if you're angry, then chop me. His voice comes to an abrupt halt. His somewhat reddened eyes suddenly widen, staring at Mu Yan in disbelief. Brother Yi, you're a woman? Mu Yan's heart sinks, only to discover that the disguise that Jun Shirtian made for her has disappeared. Although she is wearing men's clothing now because of the camouflage, she did not specially change her appearance. So, with a glance, it can be seen that she is disguised as a man and not a real man. But all of this is a bit too much of a coincidence. I am sorry. Han Jiaming's originally flushed cheeks turn red. He slightly lowers his head and can't help but raise it again. With fanatical love and desire in his eyes, he hoarsely says, Brother Yi, I didn't mean to be rude. But in my entire life, I've never seen anyone so moved. The first time I saw you, I had a good impression of you. But at that time, I thought that you were a man and wanted to marry the demon princess, so I suppressed the feelings in my heart. But only now do I know that you're actually a woman disguised as a man. I feel as if the heavens are looking after me. What demon race princess? In my heart, you can't even compare to her. The two of us have been locked up here today. I'm sure, Brother Yi, Miss Yi has also felt the changes in our bodies. Perhaps this is fate bestowed upon us by the heavens. He closed his eyes and revealed a pained and struggling expression. His voice became more and more hoarse and carried a strong and almost uncontrollable desire. Miss Yi, if I can't hold back and do something worse than a beast, I hope you don't hate me. I swear, I will be responsible for you, girl. As long as you are willing to marry me, I promise you that I, Han Jiaming, will only have you as my wife for the rest of my life. If I am unfaithful to you, I will be abandoned by both men and God. I will die a horrible death. Miss Yi, Mine mercilessly interrupts him. Young Master Han, you're thinking too much. I already have a fiancé, so I'm not interested in marrying someone else. Han Jiaming's hands, which were hanging by his side, suddenly clenched tightly. The veins on his forehead twitched slightly. Chapter 40, 300. He only revealed a dejected expression and said in a hoarse voice, I know. Since you already have someone in your heart, I will definitely try my best to restrain myself and not hurt you. However, if one day your fiancé lets you down, please remember that there will always be someone waiting for you wholeheartedly behind you. Such a handsome, affectionate, and talented man was willing to endure his overflowing desire for her and promised to spend the rest of his life for her. He was even willing to wait. If she was an ordinary girl, even if her heart belonged to someone else, she would probably be moved to tears at this moment. He could no longer reject her heartlessly. However, after he said this, Mu Yan's 7 absolute swords swooshed across her chest and said faintly, I advise you to restrain yourself. Otherwise, I'm not sure if you can guarantee that you won't hurt me, but I certainly can't guarantee that I won't hurt you. Han Jiaming's affectionate eyes darkened. His long eyelashes drooped, covering the divine light in his eyes. Jun Mayan, truly worthy of being the woman that Di Mingju fancies. She had actually completely abandoned his deep love for her. Interesting, really interesting. He wants to see if this woman can still be so calm and unhurried when he takes away her pure and innocent body, and that kind of enchanting scene unfolds in front of Di Mingju. When Zhongli conveyed his master's message to him, he thought that he would be afraid and retreat. But in fact, Han Jiaming only felt excited. He was able to snatch the woman he loved from the hands of the Polar Domain's sovereign emperor. To be able to take the supreme princess of the devil race as his own. To be able to make the Shun musicians, who had once dominated the 3 realms, once again go crazy for a man from the Han family. This kind of glory and sense of accomplishment was incomparable to anything else. At this time, Jun Mayan can still be tough and insolent. But when the lovesickness demonic love curse in her body was completely activated, He would lose his mind and only be left with a crazy desire for the Love Valley. At that time, even if he doesn't approach her, June Mayan will still put down her self-esteem and pride and crawl towards him to tactfully seek pleasure. Han Jiaming can't wait to see Di Mingju's reaction when the door to the main hall is pushed open tomorrow. However, when he thought about Zhong Li's plan, he felt a chill down his spine. Han Jiaming couldn't help but curl up the corner of his lips. In the end, it's not certain whether it'll be him bringing June Mayan to watch a good show, or Zhong Li bringing Di Mingju to watch a good show. Just as he was deep in thought, a loud bang came from not far away. He sees that Mayan, who has been sitting against the wall, has fallen to the ground. Her body is curled up into a ball, her mouth uttering painful and chaotic moans. Han Jiaming's lips curled into a faint smile, but it was immediately replaced with worry. Miss Yi, what's wrong?" he anxiously shouted as he stumbled towards Mu Yan in the corner. At the same time, as if unable to restrain himself, he tore at his clothes. By the time he rushes to Mu Yan's side, his clothes are already completely open, revealing a bare chest full of masculine charm. "Miss Yi, are you alright?" He reached out his hand to help her up. As if he couldn't restrain himself, he wanted to pull her into his arms. His voice was panting and filled with deep affection. "Miss Yi, if you really can't bear it anymore, I can help you. I promise you that after today, I will definitely be responsible to you." Han Jiaming's voice came to a screeching halt. He abruptly loosened his grip, retreating several steps back. Chapter 4301. Han Jiaming's left hand clutched his right hand that had just touched Mu Yan's clothes. His face was full of shock and horror. There was a piercing pain in his right hand, and this pain was quickly spreading to his heart. "Ha ha ha ha, you rogue pervert, you didn't expect it, right?" An old voice rang out in the room. Although it was still a little weak, there was a sense of arrogance in it. "You want to touch my precious disciple? Do you think a pervert like you is qualified? After being poisoned by my 7 corpses soul eroding powder, I want to see how you, this rogue pervert, will think about my baby disciple." 7 corpses soul eroding powder. That was a top poison, rare in the world. It was effective even for a cultivator in the Immortal King realm. Han Jiaming's heart sank. He suddenly gritted his teeth. A cold light flashed in his hand, and he directly cut off his right hand. This stopped the spread of the poison. However, beads of sweat still appeared on his forehead. The pain of losing an arm was not something that ordinary people could bear. At this time, Mu Yan also got up from the ground. She gently clicked her tongue and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Master Xiaojiu, you actually beat me to it. Let me directly cut off his arm. Wouldn't it be a waste of Master's good medicine?" Han Jiaming suddenly looked at Mu Yan. He saw that the girl, who had just been controlled by the lovesickness curse and lost the ability to resist, was now standing in the same place. Although her face was still flushed and her eyes were blurred, it was clear that she had not lost her mind. However, Mu Yan didn't look at him. She turned to the other side and whispered, "Master Xiaojiu, didn't you say you want to rest first? Why did you come out?" He saw that not far from Mu Yan, there was a young man's figure looming. It was not a real person, but more like a shadow that would be blown away by the wind. Han Shuju looked at her and thought of the anxiety and worry of losing her apprentice during this period of time. She followed Di Mingju to look for him. She only felt wronged and depressed. Her eyes turned red. His appearance was that of a chubby and cute boy. At this time, when he cried, he looked even more cute. The atmosphere in the room, which should have been tense, added a bit of joy. Han Shuju said with grievance, "My dear disciple, why did you leave the inheritance space half a year ago and never appeared again? Do you know how worried I was for you?" Just now, he did greet Mu Yan and was going to sleep to recuperate. But when he was nurturing this fragile avatar's soul, he felt that he had neglected something important. Little Nine's master? He seemed to have really heard the brat that he was currently possessing call him Little Nine Master. Moreover, it wasn't his voice, but his soul consciousness that had entered the void spirit ring. There was no possibility of hearing wrongly. And in this world, The only person who would call him Little Nine Master was when Han Chujiu thought of this. She woke up. Then he hears the conversation between Mu Yan and Han Jiaming. When she hears the Han family call Mayan Yi brother and say that she is a woman. What else Han Chujiu doesn't understand? Mu Yan's alias in Tianguang ruins was Yi Liangchun. Because of carelessness, Han Chujiu forgot to ask her treasured apprentice's real name. He thought that Yap Liangchun was her real name. No wonder he searched around the Demon Imperial Palace. Except for Di Mingju, he disliked everyone else. Chapter 43:02. However, when he sensed this youngster's aura, he felt an indescribable familiarity. Because this is his precious apprentice Ah. He said that as long as he can come out of the Medicine King Hall, he will be able to find his precious apprentice. Han Chujiu cried with joy. But before he could be happy for long, he noticed that Han Jiaming wanted to lay his hands on his precious apprentice. Are you kidding me? What kind of peerless treasure is his apprentice? Is it something that this kind of dog pervert can touch? He even dislikes Di Mingju. How can he like this kind of thing? This is unbearable. Han Chujiu immediately took out the 7 corpses soul-eroding powder from the inheritance space, regardless of the consumption of her soul. You dare to touch my precious apprentice, then I will waste your turtle grandson. She just didn't expect that Han Jiaming was also a ruthless character. After realizing that the 7 corpses soul-eroding powder will erode his heart, he decisively cut off his right hand. In this way, although he was seriously injured, the poison will not spread. Han Chujiu gritted her teeth and said, "This bastard pervert dares to bully you. Master will call Flower Peacock and let him cut this bastard surnamed Han into 8 or 10 pieces." After scolding, Han Chujiu suddenly realized why this Han Jiaming was also surnamed Han. When he scolded Han, didn't that mean he was scolding himself as well? Not good, super bad. Mayan couldn't help but be amused by her lovely master. But when she heard that he wanted to call Di Mingju, in fact, Mayan still hasn't figured out how the always serious Jun Shangdaran became Flower Peacock in her master's mouth. She shook her head. "I'm afraid we can't get out of this room now." With that, she turned to look at Han Jiaming and hooked up her lips. "Young Master Han, are you done acting? Now you can talk about it. What do you and the people behind you want to do by locking me in here?" Han Jiaming lowered his eyes for a while, then he suddenly laughed. "Jun Mayan is indeed Jun Mayan, a woman who can be fancied by the Emperor of the Polar Domain. I shouldn't look down on you because of your low cultivation and young age." Mayan's eyes suddenly narrowed. Han Jiaming really knew her identity. How did he know? "You know Zhongli?" Han Jiaming raised his eyebrows, and the astonishment on his face deepened. "You even know about Zhongli?" Zhongli, or rather, Wenjia, had always boasted that his undercover work among the demons was flawless. But from the looks of it, that wasn't the case. At least, this princess who had just returned not long ago actually suspected him in such a short time. At this moment, Han Jiaming didn't look like he was struggling in pain after being drugged. His expression was calm, and his movements were graceful and calm. Even though he had lost a pair of hands, it did not diminish his elegance in the slightest. Han Chujiu stared at Xiao Tainiao's face, but suddenly, she slightly frowned. Her face showed a bit of surprise. "What does Han Ziki have to do with you?" Han Jiaming chuckled. "I didn't think that there would still be someone in this world who remembers my ancestor." After a pause, Han Jiaming's gaze turns to Mayan. "Speaking of which, my ancestor Han Ziki doesn't have a deep relationship with your Shin musicians." At that time, if it weren't for the head musician of the Shin music school, Bailey Yinlu, being too arrogant and offending most of the sects and families in the Xiaoxian continent, the Shun music school would not have become the target of public criticism. My ancestor Han Ziki would not have died to protect Bailey Yinlu. Once my ancestor died, the Shun music school collapsed. Chapter 43:03. Those sects and families that haven't yet vented their hatred and greed on my Han family. Han Jiaming's tone is still calm, but the light in his eyes is gloomy and cold, as if they're quenched with a bone-chilling poison. Those people's words are pleasant to hear, that the Shun musician sect was wiped out in order to uphold justice and slay evil. But in fact, each and every one of them just wanted to snatch the Shun musicians' heaven-defying inheritance and the best holy artifact, the Tian Mo Chin. After slaughtering the entire Shun musician sect, they couldn't find any inheritance related to the Shun musicians, so they set their eyes on our Han family. In the polar domain under the imperial court, there was only the Shun musician sect and my Han family. Even because Di Beishuan's cultivation was not as good as Bailey Inlo's, he was only on par with my ancestor. The Shun musician sect and the Han family, who were connected by marriage, even overshadowed the imperial court of the polar domain. After this battle, the Han family's youths were slaughtered, the clan's resources were looted, and the dignified top aristocratic family became a third-rate small sect that could bully and oppress them. Ha 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 ha, you tell me, how wonderful is the world? Han Jiaming looks at Jun Mayan, lowers his voice, and slowly says, Jun Mayan, tell me, your Shin musician sect, don't you owe my Han family a glory and a wife? Many people say that I look very similar to my ancestor, Han Ziki. That year, my ancestor and the head of the Shun musician sect, Bailey Inlu, tied the knot. Now, it's your turn to be with me. Is this the fate of heaven, the fate that has been passed down for thousands of years? Mayan is about to speak, but she hears Han Chuju already flying into a rage. Screw your father's fate. Screw your mother's 1,000 years of fate. Do you think you're worthy to tie the knot with my baby disciple? That kid Di Mingju still wants to stand aside? Who do you think you are? Mayan's face suddenly changes, and the 7 extinction sword in her hand suddenly swings out. Ninth Master, be careful. However, her reaction is still a step too slow. A dark red flame sprang up from under Han Chujio's shadow, instantly engulfing it. Han Chujio is just a broken soul clone, so naturally, he has no power to resist. His illusory shadow instantly becomes faint, almost non-existent. Ninth Master. My good disciple, don't worry. This is just 1,000th of my soul. If it disperses, then so be it. It's no big deal. Han Jiaming, don't think you've won. I'm warning you. If you dare touch my precious disciple, I'll tear you to pieces. The dark red flame burned out, and Han Chujio's figure also disappeared. Han Jiaming suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood, his body swaying. His voice once again became a bit hoarse, really worthy to be called Xingzhu Medicine King Han Chujio Ah. Even if it was only 1,000th of his soul, it wouldn't stop him from poisoning me. It's a pity. A scarlet light flashed across Han Jiaming's eyes. Immediately after, the bones in his body let out a crisp crackling sound, and the hand that was originally chopped off grew back at a speed visible to the naked eye. From the ghastly white bones to the bloody flesh covering it, even the skin had completely recovered. Han Jiaming didn't even look at his hand, but step by step, he walked towards Mayan. There is no trace of pain on his face. Instead, his mouth holds a gentle and elegant smile. Jun Mayan, you still don't know, this place is called the Little Curse God's Land, and your body has been planted with the lovesickness demon curse. As long as you are still within the scope of this Little Curse God's Land, I am God. Chapter 4304. Even if Di Mingju accidentally comes in, as long as he's bound by the power of the curse here, he'll still become a turtle in my jar. Han Jiaming reaches out his hand, wanting to stroke Mayan's face. Mu Yan sidesteps and looks at him coldly. He wasn't angry at all. Instead, he smiled and said, At first, I wanted to give you a beautiful memory. Let's just take it that we're both under the influence of an aphrodisiac and have sex uncontrollably. Then, we'll marry into the Han family and have a beautiful dream of being together for the rest of our lives. Isn't that great? Why do you have to expose me like this? But even if you expose me, you won't be able to escape from me in this little cursed land. Today, you are destined to become my woman. Mu Yan took a step back and said coldly, What is the little cursed land? What is the relationship between the cursed land of the Yanwu continent and this little cursed land? Was it also set up by you guys? There's also the lovesickness demonic love curse. If I remember correctly, Jun Shirtian was also afflicted with the lovesickness demonic love curse. That's why he had no choice but to use the mortal world tribulation method to save himself. So, all of this was set up by the devil emperor priest, Zhongli? Han Jiaming was stunned by her series of questions. Then, he couldn't help but chuckle, looking at her with eyes full of admiration and amazement. Lovesickness charm curse entered his bones, and lesser incantation land strengthened him. At this moment, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that Jun Mayan is burning with lust and suffering so much that she doesn't want to live. However, other than a flushed face, watery peach blossom eyes, and a slightly hoarse voice, the girl in front of him didn't seem to have any abnormalities. Even the occasional trembling of her body was concealed by her subtle movements and movements. He was only in his early 20s, but he was already a demon master. Moreover, if the information Master gave him was true, then this person might not only be able to cultivate in the devil path, but he could also cultivate in the spirit path. Moreover, his cultivation in the spirit path had already attained the mysterious immortal realm. How many generations had it been since a spirit and demonic dual cultivator had appeared in this world? The most frightening thing is that this person has struggled all the way from the Yenwu continent. In just a few short years, from a mortal who couldn't even be considered a spirit cultivator, he had now become the great demon King Yi, who could make tens of thousands of demons willingly submit to him with his own strength. This kind of innate potential, this kind of temperament and willpower, simply surpassed even Bailey Yinlu from back then. Han Jiaming's heart suddenly surged with a sincere feeling. If he could marry such a woman, would the Han clan be able to regain the glory of 1,000 years ago? Thinking of this, Han Jiaming's tone became gentler, and he even patiently answered her questions. Of course, he wasn't afraid of such a delay. Unless he wanted to, no one could break the lesser cursed land. Even Jun Shirtian and Deming Ju can't do it. And the longer it drags on, the more severe the lovesickness curse within Mayan's body will become. When that time comes, she will crave even more for his invasion and love. Han Jiaming unhurriedly said, "The lesser cursed land, as the name suggests, is naturally a weaker version of this cursed land. But even so, it would take several hundred years before it could be successfully arranged. The cursed land can strengthen all the power of curse by several times and can also stimulate the curse technique that was originally hidden within the body. It can even seal and reduce the cultivation that exceeds a certain limit." Chapter 4305. The land of the cursed god of the Yenwu continent that you speak of can be said to be tailor-made for Deming Ju by my master. As long as you enter it, the god-punishing curse hidden in the leaf fire bloodline will be activated. The result, I think you already know. If it's light, you'll lose your memory, the power of the curse will deepen, and your soul will be damaged. If it's heavy, your soul will scatter, and you'll die. Mayan's pupils shrink. Han Jiaming takes another step closer, lowering his head and saying in a hoarse voice, "Jun Mayan, leave Deming Ju and follow me. The Polar Domain's emperor has 3,000 beauties in his harem. It's impossible for him to wholeheartedly treat you, but I can. I promise that as long as you agree to marry me, I will be as faithful to you as my ancestor." Mayan takes a step back with an expressionless face, but the hoarseness of her voice becomes more and more alluring. How to remove the god-punishing curse? So you're asking so much because you want to find out how to remove the god-punishing curse for Deming Ju? Han Jiaming's voice becomes a bit colder. It's a pity that even if you ask me, I don't know. The god-punishing curse was planted by Master, and only Master alone can remove it in this world. Deming Ju is destined to be a puppet in Master's palm. He can't even control his life and death. You're daydreaming, vainly trying to save his life. Receiving such an answer, Mayan isn't the slightest bit annoyed. She just continues to ask, "Then what about the lovesickness demon love curse? Was it planted by Zhong Li on Jun Shirtian?" Han Jiaming sees that she isn't overly concerned about Deming Ju, and his expression softens a bit. Hearing her next question, he can't help but sneer. How could Zhongli have the means to do something to Jun Shirtian? That was a more sophisticated and remote arrangement by Master. He spent an extremely important chess piece to plant the lovesickness demon love curse in Jun Shirtian. When Han Jiaming talks about Master, his always arrogant eyes unexpectedly reveal a bit of admiration. The lovesickness devil love curse has different grades. Only peerless grade curse technique can be used on venerables. And once the lovesickness devil love curse fully activates, Jun Shirtian will become a puppet controlled by his lust, completely at the mercy of his master. Naturally, the demon race will also become an object in the hands of his master. However, something unexpected happened. Han Jiaming's gaze fell on Mu Yan, his expression gentle as he slowly said, "Your father Jun Shirtian is also a ruthless character." After he discovered that he was afflicted with a lovesickness demonic love curse, he endured his boiling desire and did not find a woman to vent it on. Instead, he destroyed his own divine soul and fell into a coma. In this way, although Jun Shirtian is heavily injured, Master's goal of controlling him will not be achieved. After much consideration, the Master buried the chess piece, Zhongli, and proposed the mortal world tribulation method. This method can indeed save Jun Shirtian's life, but at the same time it will open a secret door in his body. When the worldly trials is over, when Jun Shirtian and the others think that the lovesickness curse has been lifted, he will become Master's puppet. The corner of Mu Yan's lips curled up, and she said in an increasingly hoarse voice, "Unfortunately, you still did not succeed." "Yeah." Han Jiaming gently shakes his head and slightly moves closer to Mu Yan. His hot breath lingers on her face, lingering and ambiguous. At that time, even Master did not know why he failed. Jun Shirtian returned from the worldly trials, and the lovesickness demon love curse in his body was lifted, but the secret door in his body was not opened. As a result, Master's 1,000-year plan failed at the last moment. Chapter 4306. But now I know that the accident was you and your mother. It's really unexpected that the cold-blooded and heartless demon lord would fall in love with a woman from the lower realms. Mu Yan frowns and takes a step back. Han Jiaming's tone when talking about Ning Yanxin makes her very unhappy. They already know the reason why their plan failed. It's because Jun Shirtian fell in love with a woman from the lower realms and gave birth to a child. After the soul and spirit returned, they sealed themselves because they were in too much pain and despair. At the same time, they also sealed the secret door that Han Jiaming's master left in Jun Shirtian's body. Han Jiaming and the others deduce the cause and effect of the matter from Mu Yan's existence. But they don't care about Ning Yanxin at all. They don't even have the interest to investigate her name and identity. Han Jiaming's scheming is deep. He sees through her thoughts at a glance. His eyes stare at her flushed, beautiful face, and his voice becomes deep and hoarse. "Jun Mu Yan, you should know that the weak are prey to the strong. This is the law of survival in this world. The weak don't even have the qualifications to be remembered. And once the strong are weak, their fate will be more miserable and pitiful than the weak. Just like the Shanla sect in the past, and Diming Ju and Jun Shirtian that you will soon witness. They will all become turtles in the jar, without any room to resist. And you, only by choosing me and being with me can you have a chance to live. Otherwise, no matter how you struggle, there are only two choices. Either you die, or you become a puppet without self-awareness." Han Jiaming reaches out his hand, wanting to caress Mu Yan's peach blossom-like cheeks. His voice contains tenderness. "I don't want to see these beautiful eyes lose their spirit. So be obedient, okay?" Mu Yan suddenly raises the 7 absolute sword in her hand, blocking Han Jiaming's action. The lovesickness demon lord still has the lovesickness demon love curse. Of course. Mu Yan takes a deep breath. "You probably don't know how to remove the lovesickness demon love curse." Han Jiaming smiles and says good-naturedly, "The God-punishing curse and the lovesickness demon love curse are not things that Zhongli and I can master. Even the lovesickness demon love curse that Zhongli placed in your body is just a weaker version of the demon core that is similar to the demon lord's. Although it has the same effect, it's just a fake. Mu Yan, have you asked enough? I have enough patience for girls I like, but my master doesn't. After tonight, if I can't completely activate the lovesickness demonic love curse in your body, master will have to do it himself. At that time, all of you won't be able to escape, and I'll die a graveless death just like Zhongli. Speaking up to here, Han Jiaming's eyes suddenly darkened. He abruptly reached out and grabbed Mu Yan's wrist, pressing her against the wall. Stop stalling for time. From the moment you stepped into the little cursed land, you are destined to be in my hands. Han Jiaming's voice was abnormally hoarse, and his eyes were filled with a strong desire. He was not affected by the curse, and he only wanted to complete the mission. But looking at Jun Mayan's beautiful face up close, he thinks of her talent, her strength, her calmness in the face of danger, as well as that predestined fate between the Shen musicians and the Han family. Unknowingly, a strange feeling was ignited in his heart. Not only was he trying to complete the mission his master had given him, but he also wanted to possess her from the bottom of his heart, violate her, and make her crazy for him. Chapter 4307. Han Jiaming reached out to hold Mayan's face and was about to kiss her. However, at this moment, he heard the girl's low and hoarse voice without any panic or anger. I think you also don't dare to reveal your master's identity, and you can't even reveal it. If that's the case, then there's no need for me to play along with you. Mayan reached out and pushed him a few steps away. Han Jiaming paused and frowned at her. What do you mean? He had always been a scheming person. Hearing this, he immediately looked at Mayan from head to toe. After confirming that she was really affected by the lovesickness demon love curse, he breathed a sigh of relief. He really liked and admired the girl in front of him. Even at this point, she could still calmly try to provoke him with words and strike back. It was a pity that her opponent was him. The tenderness and desire in Han Jiaming's eyes became stronger. He was about to step forward when Mayan slightly raised her voice. Third brother, come in. As soon as she finished speaking, the dark room suddenly shook violently. A gust of wind blew, extinguishing all the lit candles in the room. But the light didn't dim, because the walls and doors around the room once again lit up with a dazzling red light. Golden runes appeared on the surface, rippling like water, but also like a spider web that was slowly being torn apart by a hand. Han Jiaming's complexion changed greatly, and he suddenly looked at the door where the runes were the most concentrated. With a bang, the runes on the door finally couldn't hold on any longer and shattered. Then the door opened, and dazzling light shone in from outside, forcing Han Jiaming to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he found two people outside the room. One had a grave and stern expression, and his whole body was emitting a bone-piercing, killing intent. His cultivation was around the peak of golden immortal. The other was sitting in a wheelchair. His face was pale, and his figure was thin. He looked cultured and refined, but also fragile. He was a cripple that no one would be wary of. But Han Jiaming's gaze was focused on him, not even for a moment. Who are you? Chu Moli smiled and pointed at Mayan. Didn't you hear it just now? Third brother. This person was Mayan's third brother, a disciple of the Shaorao school. During the day in the heavenly enchantment palace, Han Jiaming had seen the disciples of the carefree sect shine. He also knows about their relationship with Jun Mayan's fellow apprentices. But at that time, Han Jiaming didn't care about them at all. His natural talent was awe-inspiring, and he'd attained the mysterious immortal realm at the age of 20. Even in the Xiaoxian continent, such geniuses were as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns. But so what if they were rare? No matter how talented he was only a Xian immortal. After Han Jiaming recovered from his shock, he had already thrown them to the back of his mind. Just like how he was surprised that Jun Shirtian would be moved by a girl from the lower realms, but he didn't even think of investigating Ning Yanxin's identity. In their eyes, the weak had no right to be remembered. But at this moment, Han Jiaming was filled with regret. He regretted that he had neglected the Xiao Yao sect. His eyes were fixed on Chu Moli. Who exactly are you? Why can he break the seal of the little land of the curse god? Even Di Mingju and Jun Shitian couldn't do it. In this world, other than there was no one else who could do it. How did you do it? Chapter 4308. Saying that, he turns to look at Mayan. Junior sister, how do you feel? Mayan's whole body is soaked in cold sweat at this time. She has to use all her strength to restrain herself from making strange sounds and trembling violently. When she heard Chu Moli's nonchalant question, she almost wanted to curse out loud. Third brother. Mu Yan gritted her teeth and said, "Why don't you play the Guqin with Han Jiaming again and ask me this question after your junior sister dies from the curse?" Chu Moli rarely sees this kind of expression on his calm junior sister. He can't help but let out a low laugh. After laughing, the expression on his face instantly recedes. He spreads his hands, making a bow and knocking an arrow. A translucent silver longbow and a black arrow gradually appeared in his hand, which was supposed to be empty. The tip of the arrow is aimed at Han Jiaming's forehead. Han Jiaming's eyes widen. He suddenly feels as if a pair of hands are squeezing his heart. He wants to dodge, he wants to escape. But his whole body seems to be bound by an invisible force, and he can't move at all. A drop of cold sweat slips down Han Jiaming's forehead. At the same time, whoosh! The arrow flies out and hits Han Jiaming between the eyebrows. Han Jiaming's body shakes violently. His face is deathly pale, and his whole body is frozen like a statue. The runes and red light that were originally flickering in the room completely disappear after the arrow pierced through Han Jiaming's body. Chu Moli loosens his hand, and the silver bow disappears. He spits out a mouthful of blood. Mayan's movements are also very fast. After the runes disappear, the burning feeling in her body also disappears. She immediately takes out the Tian Mo Qin and plucks the strings. As the sound of the zither lingers in the room, Chu Moli's deathly pale face finally regains some vitality. The imperial minister looks at Chu Moli, then at Mayan. His eyes are filled with shock and admiration. What kind of sect is the Xiaorao school? It's not enough to have a monstrous talent like Chu Moli. The others are also more frightening than the last. The sound of the zither slowly turns into the sound of flowing water and finally disappears. Mayan exhales and puts away the Tian Mo Qin. She walks over to Chu Moli and grabs his wrist. After confirming that Chu Moli's body could still hold on, she heaved a sigh of relief. Then his attention fell on Han Jiaming. What's wrong with him? Is he stupid or dead? From the moment Chu Moli's arrow hit him, Han Jiaming had been standing rigidly on the spot. His entire person was like a stone statue, without the slightest fluctuation of breath. But if he was dead, it didn't look like it. Chu Moli coughed lightly, then said indifferently, "I was just turned into a puppet by the backlash from the lovesickness demonic love curse." He was alive, but it was worse than being dead. From then on, he could only listen to his master's orders like a walking corpse. Without the master's order, the flesh would rot and die. Mu Yan slightly inhales a breath. She did not sympathize with Han Jiaming, but she was shocked by Han Jiaming's master's methods. His subordinates would either succeed or become puppets. How heartless and vicious was this? Suddenly, Chu Moli's voice paused, and he let out a soft Suddenly, a shadow appeared beside Han Jiaming's statue-like body. That shadow looked exactly the same as Han Jiaming. Mu Yan's pupils shrink. A doppelganger?
No.
Chu Moli faintly said. He forcibly separated a part of his soul. Chapter 4309. The tearing and cutting of the physical body is already so painful that one would rather die. And the pain of the separation and cutting of the soul is only 1,000 times worse than the pain of the physical body. Chu Moli's eyes reveal a bit of admiration. At the crucial moment, he's ruthless towards himself. Junior sister, this person is quite interesting. He has something in common with Li Weiran. Because it's a remnant soul, Han Jiaming's figure is very faint. His gaze sweeps over Chu Moli, a deep fear in the bottom of his eyes. Only when it falls on Mayan does he speak in a low, hoarse voice. June Mayan, we will meet again. One day, I will take back what the kamikaze sect owes my Han family. Saying that, Han Jiaming's figure becomes fainter and fainter, about to disappear. However, at this moment, a dark red flame suddenly sprang up from the ground, directly engulfing Han Jiaming's remnant soul. Aha! A mournful and despairing scream, making one's scalp go numb. Before Mayan could react, Han Jiaming, who was just praised by Chu Moli, has already been burned to ashes. Mayan can't come back to her senses for a while. Third senior brother was just praising Han Jiaming for being ruthless. She had also prepared herself that she definitely wouldn't be able to catch or kill Han Jiaming this time. Who would have thought that the remnant soul that had just said those harsh words would be completely burned in the next moment? So, Han Jiaming was completely burned to death. She had already prepared herself that the next time they met, this person would make all kinds of obstacles for her. In the end, the person's soul flew away and scattered like a feather. Also, the dark red flame that had just appeared seemed a little familiar. The next moment, she hears a familiar voice in the night sky. Long time no see, Chu Moli. Has your eyesight really gotten worse and worse? You can also see that this kind of thing is similar to me. White clothes like snow, black hair like a waterfall. A bright red ribbon covers his eyes, glaring and gorgeous. Under the night sky, the man in white slowly lands on the ground. His gaze seems to be smiling yet not smiling, sweeping over Chu Moli with ridicule, then falling on Mayan. His thin lips slowly hooked up into a happy arc. June Mayan, you really didn't die. Seeing the person, Mayan is also surprised for a moment. Li Weiran, why are you here? And how did this guy get in? There was a barrier above the hidden abyss, and it was impossible for anyone to enter without alerting Elder Min Wei and the others. Li Weiran's youthful face revealed a pleased expression. I saw Yeliankin summon in Tianguang ruins and guessed that it was you, so I specially rushed over to see if you were still alive. Mu Yan stares blankly. This was the second time Li Weiran had repeated, she's not dead, and she's still alive. Mu Yan looks at him curiously. Why do you think I'm dead? Suddenly, her expression changed. Could it be that the heart-piercing, life-prolonging curse in your body is acting up? Did something happen to Xiaobao? Li Weiran was taken aback by her question. Then he smiled and said, No, that kid is fine. His cultivation progresses by leaps and bounds, so when he remembers that this is Di Mingju's son, his heart is particularly unhappy. After confirming that Xiaobao was fine, she heaved a sigh of relief. However, he couldn't help but repeat his question. Li Weiran brushes away the red satin on his eyes and said indifferently, Nothing much, I just heard someone mention it, so I wanted to verify it. But I guess you won't die so easily. Even I couldn't kill you back then, so what qualifications do others have to kill you? If you died so simply, how could you still be June Mayan? Chapter 43:10. Mu Yan's mouth twitched. This guy still has the cheek to say that? How much trouble did he give her? He almost killed Di Mingju. But this guy was too strong. Mu Yan admitted that she couldn't beat him. She could only swallow her anger and ask, Who told you that I died? Li Weiran's gaze swept over the two people in front of him through the red silk covering his eyes. His lips curled into a meaningful smile, then he slowly said, I'm sorry, I didn't want to tell you this. Chu Moli, who had been silent all this time, raised his eyebrows slightly. Didn't want to tell us? So the person who killed Junior's sister is related to her and also to me? Li Weiran's cunning and excited expression froze, and he looked at Chu Moli unhappily. There was someone in this world who was almost demonic, but had a similar temperament to him. It was really too boring. Li Weiran suddenly raised his hand and threw a lump of flesh on the ground. Mu Yan was startled. When she saw the only intact face on the lump of flesh, she immediately showed an astonished expression. This was the demon servant who led her to the little cursed place. Mu Yan was just fighting with Han Jiaming in the room, trying to get information out of him. He had long forgotten about this small fry at the back of his mind. She didn't expect that this person would be caught by Li Weiran. The bodies of the demon race were different from human cultivators. As long as the demon core was intact, even if the body was tortured to pieces, they wouldn't die. But they would suffer from hellish pain. Right now, this demon servant was clearly tortured to the point where his mind wasn't clear. He kept shouting, "Kill me. I beg you, kill me, don't torture me anymore." I really can't say anything." Mu Yan slowly raised her head to look at Li Weiran. Li Weiran immediately straightened his back, like a child seeking praise, looking at her with a burning gaze. Even through the red silk, he could feel the passionate gaze. But in the next moment, he heard Mu Yan's expressionless voice. "So, when I was fighting with Han Jiaming in the little cursed place, you were watching the show with relish?" Li Weiran's expression froze again. He coughed lightly and reached out to touch the bridge of his nose. Not really with relish, right? Well, in fact, he was quite interested in watching it. Of course, the premise of his interest is that he knows that a mere Han Jiaming wouldn't be able to hurt Mayan. If Jun Mayan was so easy to deal with, how could it be his, Han Jiaming's turn? At that time, Chu Moli was quietly waiting not far away. Han Jiaming thought that even if Di Mingju and Jun Shirtian came, they would still be powerless. Jun Mayan, who was already trapped in the little cursed land, was being toyed with by him. Little did they know that under normal circumstances, even if Mu Yan and Chu Moli joined hands, they still might not be a match for Han Jiaming, this hidden peak stage immortal king. However, it was precisely because he was in the little cursed land that Chu Moli was invincible, even though he had once been completely powerless against Chu Moli. Let alone Han Jiaming, who couldn't even master curse force. Li Weiran probably had these thoughts in his mind at that time, but he didn't think too deeply about it. Then he watched the show with great interest. In his mind, he's even fantasizing that if he were to act as a hero and save the beauty in a moment of imminent peril, would he be able to make Mayan abandon Di Mingju and come to his embrace? Chapter 43:11. So now that Mu Yan had exposed him, even someone as thick-skinned as him revealed an embarrassed expression. Of course, there were only one or two people in this world that could make him embarrassed. Li Weiran avoided Mu Yan's gaze and forcefully changed the topic. "Mu Yan, I got something very interesting from this guy. Don't you want to hear it?" As he said that, he lifted his foot and lightly kicked the meatball. "Come, say what you just said one more time." The demon servant tightly shut his mouth, his broken body violently trembling, as if he was extremely resistant to saying anything. But very quickly, a dark red flame sprang up on his body. The demon servant lets out a mournful scream. As he screams, he can't help but shout. Master's plan is carried out by three parties. Han Jiaming will occupy Her Royal Highness, the priest will control the demon venerable, and Master's hidden chess piece will personally deal with Di Mingju. Ah. Stop, kill me, kill me. After screaming in pain, he had no choice but to continue. Now, even if Han Jiaming fails, it won't affect the other two parties. The Demon Lord's lovesickness demon love curse has already flared up, and Di Mingju will also be controlled by the god-punishing curse. Even if it can't last, it won't affect Master's plan. Mu Yan sternly said. "What is your Master's plan?" I can't say it. I'll die if I say it." Li Weiran crouched down and poked the demon servant's face with his slender fingers. He smiled gently and harmlessly. "If you don't say it, it'll be 10,000 times worse than death." The demon servant's body trembled violently. His eyes widened, his face filled with horror and despair. But as Li Weiran's finger poked him, he still couldn't help but speak. The Demon Lord killed the spirit cultivators, and Di Mingju killed the higher-ups of the demon clan. From today onwards, the spirit cultivators and the demon clan will be irreconcilable, and will not rest until one of us is dead. Ah. With a scream, the demon servant's entire body exploded. Even the demon core was smashed into smithereens in an instant. As soon as he said the last sentence, Li Weiran had already retreated quickly. He was not stained by the blood at all. Seeing Mu Yan look over, he immediately raised his hands and said innocently, "I didn't do anything. It was his master who placed a curse in his body to make him self-destruct." In order to make the demon servant finish speaking before exploding, he had spent a lot of effort. Mu Yan frowned, her expression grave. She suddenly raised her voice and said, "Zhongli." Not far away, an old man immediately walked over and bowed to her. "Greetings, princess." Mu Yan said in a low voice, "Do you know where the demon lord is now? How is he now?" Zhongli nodded. This subordinate has been using the Mirage Lightstone to determine the situation of the demon venerable. The lovesickness demonic love curse in the demon lord's body hasn't fully activated yet. It's probably because Wenjin isn't confident that he can kill the demon lord with one strike, so he didn't act rashly. Mu Yan breathed a sigh of relief, but then her face suddenly changed. That was because the void spirit ring in his hand was releasing a strong force. A faint light was emitted from the ring. This means that something has happened to Di Mingju. The next moment, the old man's expression also changed drastically as he took out a Mirage Lightstone. The Mirage Lightstone that was originally showing the scene in the room suddenly turned pitch black. The old man anxiously said, "Princess, Wenjie has started to make his move." Chapter 43:12. She thought that Jun Shirtian would be the fake priest Wenjie's target. But she didn't expect that the master that Han Jiaming mentioned would even include Di Mingju. And what is the hidden pawn that the demon envoy said was placed at Di Mingju's side? Mayan clenches her fists. Although Zhong Li's cultivation has recovered a lot, he is still far from his peak. If she goes with him, she is confident that she can deal with the fake priest. And third brother can also remove the lovesickness demon love curse for Jun Shirtian. But Di Mingju's situation is not good. Which side should she help first? Li Weiren smiles. "Do you need my help? If you want to save your future father-in-law, I can help." Mayan is too lazy to pay attention to him and looks at Chu Moli. "Third brother, can you go with Zhong Li to find the demon venerable?" The fake priest Wenjie's strength is average, but he is much better at using the curse than Han Jiaming. If he wants to deal with Jun Shirtian and activate the lovesickness demon love curse, he must create an environment that can increase the power of the curse. For example, the minor curse land. And in a place like the minor curse land, third brother Chu Moli is almost invincible. Until now, Mayan had never seen anyone who could surpass third brother in the use of incantations. With the help of third brother, old man Zhong Li, and Elderman Wei, Jun Shirtian's safety should be guaranteed. Even if she thinks like this, Mayan is still uneasy because she can't go personally. She pauses, then says in a hoarse voice, "Third brother, Jun Shirtian is my father. The blood-patterned bell on his chest still has my mother's remnant soul. Please, you must save him." Chu Moli looks at her deeply for a long time, then smiles and nods. "I know." With third brother's words, Mayan breathes a sigh of relief. As long as third brother promises, there is nothing he can't do. After Chu Moli agrees, he looks at Yu Zhengqing behind him. "Little sister, take him with you." Mayan is stunned and can't help but look at Yu Zhengqing. This person can only be considered average in terms of appearance, strength, and talent. But I heard that he saved third brother. Therefore, the people of the Xiaoyao sect have always been very kind to the imperial minister. However, even so, Yu Zhengqing's face remained cold and he acted alone. Other than Chu Moli, he never talked to anyone else. Occasionally, one could see the bitterness and hatred in this person's eyes. Mayan always felt that third senior brother didn't keep her by his side just to repay a debt of gratitude, but for some other purpose. After a moment of shock, he agreed. Since third senior brother asked her to bring people along, then he must have his reasons. After making arrangements for Jun Shirtian, Mu Yan did not want to delay any longer. She called out to Li Weiren, "Let's go, we'll go save your brother." Li Weiren almost stumbled. His usually lazy and roguish face reveals an angry expression from shame. "Jun Mayan, shut up. To hell with big brother." He had no older brother. None. Muyan ignored him and grabbed Yu Jingqing's collar. She stepped on lotus steps and quickly disappeared. Even though Yu Jingqing's face had always been cold, when a little girl grabbed his collar and lifted him up, he could not help but blush. He wanted to open his mouth and say that he can go by himself. But feeling the speed of the wind, he swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. Chapter 43:13. Yu Zhengqing knows why Chu Moli wants him to follow the demon princess. Because the demon princess wants to find the emperor of the polar domain. And only by the emperor's side can he find the person with unforgettable hatred. In order to avenge Lei Guangzong and Yan Yan, what's a little embarrassment? Yu Zhengqing slowly closes his eyes, and his expression returns to normal. Li Weiran stands there for a long time with an ugly expression. Seeing the two figures completely disappear, he finally grits his teeth and follows. Although Mu Yan is burning with worry, she can't help but curl her lips when she sees Li Weiran obediently following. Xiaobao said that your words are disgusting but your body is upright, and he's right. In fact, you still care about your elder brother, Dimingju? In fact, Dimingju also speaks harshly to Li Weiran, but he doesn't act ruthlessly. This pair of half-brothers, one more tsundra than the other. They have different ways of being tsundra. Li Weiran finally calms down and follows. Hearing this, he almost dies from anger. He grits his teeth and says, I want to see how he dies. As the two are talking, Mu Yan suddenly stops and puts Yu Jingqing down. In front of her is an empty martial practice field. As far as the eye can see, there's no one. But the void spirit ring tells her that Dimingju is nearby. Mu Yan's brows tightly knit together. She looks at Li Weiran. Li Weiran curls his lips, finds a pillar, and sits down lazily, closing his eyes and taking a nap. He clearly doesn't want to help her. Mu Yan takes a deep breath, takes out the Tian Mo Qin, and gently plucks the strings. The melodious and lingering sound of the zither slowly flows between heaven and earth. Sound of echo, no. Floating like a dream, no. Realm of stars, still can't sense Dimingju's breath. Mu Yan's forehead gradually oozes sweat. Her slightly drooping thick eyelashes gently tremble. She almost tried all the Shin musician skills, but still couldn't find a way to break through the fog in front of her eyes. She can be sure that Dimingju is nearby. Just like how the land of the little incantation prevents others from entering. There must be an invisible barrier here that conceals Dimingju's aura, but it doesn't block the connection with the void spirit ring. Was this a unique space created by the curse? This is the field that Mayan is most unfamiliar with. Whenever she ran into curse, her third senior brother would always be there to support her. But not now. As she became more and more involved with the major forces of the Xiaoxian continent, and as the master that Han Jiaming mentioned surfaced, she might have to deal with curses often in the future. She couldn't rely on third senior brother forever. She couldn't lose the ability to protect herself. He played the zither faster and faster. His face grew paler, and more sweat dripped from his forehead. Yu Zhengqing doesn't understand what happened. He only knows that Mayan's condition is not right. He wanted to help, but there was nothing he could do. He could only look at Li Weiran. At the side, Li Weiran was also focused on this scene, unknowingly clenching his fists. Suddenly, he clicked his tongue and stood up. He mutters under his breath, Jun Mayan, don't blame me if you see something bad later. His snow-white sleeves gently swayed, and his slender fingers intertwined, forming a complicated pattern. However, without waiting for Li Weiran to move, a dazzling silver light emits from behind Mayan. Chapter 43:14. Li Weiran pauses for a moment, then suddenly removes the red silk covering his face. His icy blue eyes stare unblinkingly at the girl playing the zither in front of him, almost holding his breath. The silver moon slowly appears behind the girl, illuminating the entire night like it's daytime. The wind gently blows his clothes and long hair. Even the red silk in his hand flutters violently. Li Weiran takes a deep breath, his expression solemn. What kind of energy is that? Vigorous, vast, and graceful. Sometimes, It was as silent as the air, causing one to be unable to sense it. Sometimes, it was like a surging tide that assaulted one's face. What Li Weiran finds most unbelievable is that this energy is actually attacking, devouring, and even purifying the power of the curse around it. There's actually a kind of energy in this world that can truly restrain the power of the curse. Although it's still so weak, it's never been heard of before. Shun musician. Is this the Shun musician that made the entire Xiaoxian continent tremble with fear 1,000 years ago? Are all Shun musicians so powerful, or is it only this girl in front of him who's special? Along with the melodious sound of the zither, the silver moon is beautiful. The spacious and silent martial arts arena gradually changed. A temple appears here. Shabby, simple, and old, it's different from any of the richly ornamented and luxurious palaces in the Demon Palace. A vague and hazy voice gradually comes from the temple. Jun Shang, everything this old servant did was for your own good. Mu Yan knows she succeeded. She broke the independent space isolated by the power of the curse. Her mind suddenly loosens. She can no longer hold on and spits out a mouthful of blood. Li Weiran slowly walks over, squats in front of her, looks at her like she's a monster, and asks hoarsely, Jun Mu Yan, who are you? Mu Yan is too lazy to pay attention to him. Her pale and blood-stained face shows a long-lost happy smile. Because just at the moment when she broke the curse barrier, she heard a familiar voice that she hadn't heard in a long time. Jun Mu Yan, do you want to die? Shin musician is only level 7, yet you dare to use the level 10 smoke godfinger. I only slept for a few months. What did you do? And what the hell is this place? If it weren't for Li Weiran watching, Mu Yan would have almost screamed. But she's so excited that she can't control her expression. Qi Huang, you finally woke up? Ever since that day on the floating island, Qi Huang killed Ning Su and revealed his split personality. He has been sleeping. Then many things happened. It's only a few months since Qi Huang's slumber. But Mu Yan is in a trance, feeling that she has been separated from her own artifact spirit for centuries. The world-destroying half-soul in little martial uncle's body was the other half of Seven Brilliance's divine soul. Did Qi Huang know what happened after that? The hand that Mayan is pressing on the Tian Mo Qin trembles slightly. She had too many questions she wanted to ask. She had too much pain of being separated by life and death that she wanted to confide in Qi Huang, and she could only confide in Qi Huang. Mayan has always felt that she had to bear the greatest responsibility for little martial uncle's death. This was because little martial uncle had gone through the mortal world and suffered all the sufferings in the world. He even broke his meridians in despair and died because of Qi Huang's half-soul. Seven Brilliance was her artifact spirit, a brat whom she had long acknowledged as family. If Qi Huang owed little martial uncle something, then it was equivalent to her owing little martial uncle something. Chapter 43:15. But she couldn't say it. This kind of guilt, pain, longing, and reluctance, she could not express any of it. This was because Seven Brilliance's existence could not be told to anyone. Mu Yan opened her mouth, wanting to use her divine sense to say something to Qi Huang, but in the end, she still endured it. Li Weiran's voice rang in her ears again. Mu Yan, why are you crying and laughing at the same time? Mu Yan looked up and realized that the red scarf covering Li Weiran's face had already been removed. A pair of ice-blue eyes, extremely similar to Xiao Bao's and Di Mingju's, is staring at her unblinkingly. His eyes were filled with curiosity and interest. He points to the dilapidated temple not far away and says with a smile that is not a smile, Mu Yan, you can still laugh after hearing the voice coming from inside? Voice. What was that sound? After Li Weiran's reminder, Mayan's attention finally focused on the rundown temple. Indeed, just as Li Weiran had said, the originally deathly silent surroundings began to emit faint sounds. My lord, which part of these two women isn't better than that man, Yiliang Chun? Jun Mayan was once the woman you truly loved. For you, she traveled thousands of miles to the polar domain. She was seriously injured and lost her memories, but she only had eyes for you. There's also Miss Mo Lien. She's the Demon Race's Priest Hall's holy maiden and the candidate for the next Demon King's priest. My lord, you should be clear about the status of the Demon Emperor's priests in the Demon Race. Marrying Miss Mo Lien will be extremely beneficial to both you and the Polar Domain. Even if it's the Demon Race's princess, if she can accept sharing a husband with another woman, she can also marry her. But you absolutely cannot choose a man. Otherwise, if the madam under the wine spring knew that you had cut off the Polar Domain's inheritance and heirs, how sad would she be? Mu Yen frowned slightly. The person who spoke should be an older woman. She thought back, and indeed remembered that when she was in the Heavenly Charm Palace, there was an old woman following behind Di Mingju. The old woman looked at him with an extremely unfriendly gaze. Therefore, the chess piece that the demon attendant said that the master had arranged at Di Mingju's side was this old woman. As he's thinking, he hears Han Ye's flustered and exasperated voice coming from the temple. Commander Tong, you betrayed His Majesty like this, and you actually dare to say that it's for His Majesty's good. Do you still want face? Commander Tong sneered. I am Juanshang's wet nurse, Juanshang's birth mother's dowry maid. In this world, the one who cares about Juanshang the most, and is the most loyal is me. I was forced to do all this. It was for the good of Juanshang. The four of you and that Chang'ing are all responsible for Juanshang being bewitched by a man like he is today. It was you guys who led Juanshang astray. First, you let him be infatuated with a lowly mortal woman, and then he hooked up with a disgusting man, Rabbit Grandpa. A loud bang came from the temple. Apparently, the speaker had broken something in a fit of rage. Everything I've done today is for the sake of bringing order out of chaos and allowing Juanshang to walk on the right path again. You sycophants who brought Juanshang back don't need to live anymore. After returning to the Polar Domain, I'll deal with Chang'ing, Star Wolf, and defeating armies together. Immediately after, Commander Tong's voice became gentle again. His voice was low and hoarse, containing bewitchment and an inexplicable energy fluctuation. Chapter 43:16. Commander Tong's voice carries a burst of excitement and agitation. Juanshang, you don't know this, but these two women have a secret ancestral method that can impregnate high-level female cultivators and give birth to a male in one go. If you really don't like them, it doesn't matter if you don't marry them first. Wait until one of them gives birth to a dragon child, then you can make them your concubine. That would already be their greatest honor. Pfft. Li Weiran, who's listening from outside, can't help but burst out laughing. Oh my, how come I didn't know that Di Mingju had such an interesting old woman by his side? Is she using Di Mingju as a breeding pig? Ha ha ha. Mu Yen, her eyes are spitting fire. Her face is dark, but she can't refute. Li Weiran is laughing so hard that he's rocking back and forth. A woman's sweet and charming voice is already coming from the temple. Each voice is more charming than the last, more ecstatic than the last. Occasionally, it was mixed with a low gasp and a low chuckle. But from start to finish, there's no man's voice. But even so, just from the laughter of the fake Junmayan and Mo Lien, you can tell that they're very happy and excited. So much so that Junmayan even shouts with a bit of grievance. Di Mingju, didn't you say that Junmayan, was the one you liked the most? For the Polar Domain, I'm willing to share a husband with younger sister Mo Lien, but shouldn't Juanshang pamper me first? You said that you want our child to become the future master of the Polar Domain. Ha ha ha. Li Weiran laughs so hard that tears come out. His face is full of schadenfreude as he looks at the young girl with a face as black as the bottom of a pot. There's actually Junmayan here? I really didn't think that the demon race would be 100 times more fun than the Nether Domain. Fortunately, I came. Li Weiran wipes away the tears of laughter and says in high spirits, Mayan, do you really want to kill someone right now? Do you want to kill Di Mingju? I can help you. Mayan glances at him coldly. Li Weiran is swept by her faint gaze and immediately takes a step back, making a gesture to cover his mouth. But his action is funny and amusing, and his attitude is full of schadenfreude. Muyen took a deep breath and saw that the sounds inside were becoming more and more unbearable to listen to. She abruptly raised the long sword in her hand and slashed down from the sky. Boom! After a loud bang, the temple gate collapsed. Everyone in the temple turned their attention to him. Seeing Muyen's figure slowly walking in, Hanya's complexion greatly changes. He shouts in panic, "Jun, Yigongzi, why have you come?" He looks at the other side, then at Muyen, as if he wants to explain something. But Commander Tong had already sneered before she could. Young Master Yi came just in time. He pointed at the man who had hurriedly sat up on the bed. Slightly raising his chin, he said with a smile that wasn't a smile, "I'm sure you've seen it too. Our Junshang has already found his favorite concubine. Forgive our polar domain for not participating in the Heavenly Enchantment Banquet's princess selection. Of course, if the demon princess is willing to turn over a new leaf one day and marry into my polar domain as a concubine, then my polar domain will not be intolerant and will naturally welcome the arrival of the princess. As for those shady men, my polar domain will absolutely not welcome them. Young Master Yi, don't you think so?" Muyen looks at the bed, not too far away. The outside of this temple is simple and shabby, but the inside is exquisitely decorated. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.